All right, so picture this. The next time you're sitting on a plane waiting to take off, just take a second and think about it. That single flight you're on, it's really the final note in this massive, totally invisible symphony of logistics and planning that started months, maybe even years before you even thought about booking a ticket. Today, we're going to pull back that curtain and take a look at the whole symphony. I mean, we all see this stuff on the surface, right? You check in, you go through security, you board the plane. But underneath all that, there's this clockwork of absolutely incredible complexity. It's like a carefully choreographed ballet that's designed to move thousands of people around the world. We're talking about some major airlines managing over 4,000 flights every single day. At the very heart of it all is what the industry calls the grand plan. And you should really think of it like a giant puzzle. Every single piece, every plane, every pilot, every flight attendant, every gate, every single maintenance check, all of it has to fit together perfectly. And this is not something they plan on the fly. No way. This is a massive undertaking that gets mapped out long before the travel season even kicks off. So, with a puzzle this huge, where do you even begin? Well, it all starts with the two most crucial and, let's be honest, most expensive assets any airline has. Its multi-million-dollar aircraft and its highly trained crew. First, let's talk about the planes. Every single aircraft in an airline's fleet has its own unique schedule, and that's called an aircraft route. This is basically its itinerary, right? It maps out every flight that plane is going to make and every required maintenance stop over about a week. The whole goal here is to keep these planes in the air, making money as much as humanly possible. A grounded plane can cost an airline thousands of dollars an hour. So between flights, this incredibly high-pressure race against the clock kicks off. It's called the aircraft turn. As you can see from these steps, the second a plane parks at the gate, a ground crew just swarms it to deplane passengers, unload cargo, clean the cabin, refuel, restock the catering, and board a whole new set of people and their luggage. Every minute that plane sits on the ground is a minute it's not generating revenue, so this whole process is optimized for pure speed and efficiency. But here's the thing, speed can never, ever come at the expense of safety. That's why maintenance is this absolute, non-negotiable rule that's built right into every aircraft's route. So the puzzle isn't just about getting from city A to city B, it's about making sure that after a certain number of hours in the air, that plane lands in a city that has the right maintenance facility at exactly the right time. Okay, we've covered the planes. Now let's look at the other side of the coin, the people. Just like planes have routes, the crew, so the pilots and flight attendants, they have work schedules built out of blocks called trip pairs. A trip pair is basically a tour of duty. It's a sequence of flights over several days that always starts and ends at the crew member's home base, which is called their domicile. That's just the airport they're permanently assigned to. Now, this is a fantastic example of how airlines plan for things to go wrong. Most of the crew are line crew. They get a set schedule for the month. But a really crucial part of the team is the reserve crew. These are the pros who are on call, ready to jump in at a moment's notice when things go haywire. A pilot calls in sick, a weather delay pops up, anything that messes with that grand plan. They're basically the built-in shock absorbers for the entire system. So we have the plane scheduled and the people are scheduled, but how does the airline actually make money? That brings us to the financial brain of the whole operation, a fascinating field called revenue management. This quote right here, this is the guiding principle for the entire airline business model. It's not just about filling the plane up. It's about optimizing the revenue from every single seat. But what does right customer and right price even mean? Well, from an airline's point of view, passengers usually fall into two big buckets. First, you've got leisure travelers. That's most of us, right? We're sensitive to price, we're flexible with our dates, and we book way in advance to get a good deal. And then you have business travelers. They have super rigid schedules, they book at the last minute, and they care a whole lot less about the price. These are by far the airline's most profitable customers. So the airline's goal is to save enough of those expensive, high-fare seats for the last-minute business folks, while still selling all the other seats to us leisure travelers. And they do this with a three-step process. First, they set the prices. Then, they use these complex algorithms to forecast demand. And finally, they control the seat inventory, deciding exactly how many cheap seats to sell early versus how many expensive ones to hold back for later. And this, right here, is why the price of your flight can literally change from 1 hour to the next. The system is constantly chewing on booking data, updating its forecasts, and adjusting prices right up until the very moment the gate closes. It's a high-stakes, real-time auction for every single seat on that plane. But what happens when this perfectly tuned symphony, this grand plan, hits a really sour note? Because, no matter how well you plan for something, disruptions are pretty much inevitable. This is where we enter the chaotic world of irregular operations. You see, the plan is fragile. A single snowstorm at a major hub like Chicago O'Hare doesn't just affect Chicago. Oh no, it can trigger this cascade of delays and cancellations that ripples across the entire country, sometimes even across the world, as all those planes and crews get thrown completely off their meticulously planned schedules. So, when things go wrong, the airline's operations center basically turns into a war room, and they're juggling multiple, often competing goals. Getting you to your destination is definitely a priority, but it's competing with hard and fast constraints like mandatory aircraft maintenance, strict crew work rules, and commands from air traffic control, all while they're trying to minimize the absolutely astronomical cost of the disruption itself. So the next time your flight is delayed, try to remember that unseen symphony. From aircraft routing and crew scheduling to dynamic pricing and disruption management, it's a system of 1,000 interconnected parts. Which leaves us with one final thought to chew on. In a system this complex and this tightly wound, what's the one piece that, if it fails, could cause the whole thing to just unravel? Definitely something to think about.